This is your girl Lira, and you're listening to Self-Reflection Podcast. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Self-Reflection Podcast. I am blessed and grateful to be here today. Also, I'm really excited to have this conversation because I feel like this is perfect timing for me at the place that I am in my life. As a woman that is growing in this space, also learning how to become a woman in business in this space. So I think that this is a conversation that is not only going to support anybody that's listening, but I think it's going to benefit tremendously. So I'm excited to welcome our guest. Today, we're going to be speaking to Zak. Her mission is to remind every woman out there of their innate power and also their potential. And she guides women to embody freedom, purpose, and grace. So please help me welcome Zak. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. I know I gave a brief background about who you are, but can you please let our audience here know who you are, a little bit of, your background and the work that you do?
Well, that is like a 1 week question, but we'll cut it down to a couple of seconds. So I started in this industry, felt like it when I was 3 years old, when I saw my gifts come to life and I didn't understand them. Yet throughout my whole life, I went through a lot of depression, anxiety, panic attacks, suicidal thinking, all that stuff, just because I didn't know how to harness my gifts. And I was listening to the external world rather than the internal me that knew exactly who I was, the God within me. So throughout this whole process, about 13 years ago, I wanted to throw the towel into God and say, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Just get me some job and let's do this. Let's just live like normal people. However, the good Lord said, not my child. No way. Child, you are not getting a job. You're not going to have anything. You need to do what you're guided to do. And this is when I realized that there's no such thing as free will. Because my free will was, I just wanted to work in the restaurant industry, but then I couldn't even get a job in the restaurant industry after 24 years of experience. So when people say there's free will, I like to add there's free will in making choices of what you want to do, but not always on the God path that you are on. So that being said, 13 years ago, I decided to ditch the old self and say, okay, I'm stepping into this arena. What does it look like? What am I going to do? I started off with clearing dark entities off people, which is, it could be their own thoughts, other thoughts that have been put upon them, or even things that were happening from other people that were, sticking onto them. So I started off like that. And then I said, nope, not doing that. That's too heavy and dark for me. After 6 years of doing that, I was done with it. And that's when I entered the world of Be Bold, Fierce, Unstoppable. Because every woman I was working with, I noticed their bold move was them asking for help. Because as women, we're so afraid to ask for help. But you're bold when you ask for help and say, I just need some guidance. I need a shoulder to lean on. Fierce when you really take back your power. When I saw women take back their power, it was like, I felt this massive drum roll come because it was like she was starting to use her voice. She had boundaries. She started saying no. All these things started happening for her. Her life around her started changing. So she became fierce in that sense. And then the unstoppable rolled around where like literally nothing could hold her back. So Bold, Fierce, Unstoppable happened about 6 years ago. And that's the result of the clients I was working with. Women going through divorce, women going through transitional phase in their life, women trying to find something better within their life, or women that felt things were missing in their life. And underneath that whole umbrella, if I put everything on umbrella, these are all women that were experiencing some sort of a mental, I don't even like saying that, but some sort of an uneasiness or a disconnection from higher consciousness. And that's what you would call depression, because depression is literally the rise of the ego and the shrinking of the spirit, because we're not living in our truth and our body's saying, hey, I'm going to bring you down this hole so you can wake up and start seeing things on a different level. And that's your spirit speaking there. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. Yeah. When you said that you couldn't even find a job in the restaurant business for a while, I went through a similar path lately where I've been looking for a job for like maybe 8 months now, right? Um, and I just could not find one. And I felt like I was overly qualified for most of the position that I was applying for. But I'm just like, what is going on? Right? What's going on with the market? And saying that or hearing you say that somewhat makes a lot of sense in that space, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm interested in it. But before we dive deeply into our conversation, I want to ask you, when did you first realize that power and softness can coexist? And how did that change for you? That change happened for you?
Well, power is very feminine, very speaking up for yourself. It's really when I started taking back my power from the powerless. I was giving so much to those that had no power over me, but yet with their voice had power over me. But once I realized that I have the power, if I want to give you that energy, that's my power, right? So energy and power are the same thing. So if I'm giving someone my energy, I'm giving them my power. But what I realize is that you could give someone your power, but then get stuck in that arena of that individual, regardless if it's a relationship or job or friendship. And you say, oh, that person's sucking life out of me. Well, then take back your power, take back everything about what you feel like has been happening in that relationship and make it yours again. So I realized that loving myself, which is a soft trait, is really taking back my power from the powerless out there that I've given it to.
Yeah. Like, how can a woman recognize that she's giving away her power without even knowing that she's doing so? Because sometimes we can confuse that as like, showing love, right? Wanting to be there, wanting to care for them, right? But then, on the other side of the things, we are getting the short end of the stick.
Well, love has no give or take. If I'm giving love, I do not think that you would give love back to me. So I don't do things for give or take. I can't use that word, won't even come to my head now. Yes. So I do things just because I want to do things. It's not because I feel obligated to do anything. It's not because I feel like I need to do it. If I'm giving love, I'm giving love. However, if you feel that you're complaining, if you feel exhausted when you leave someone, if you feel like I don't want to talk to that person anymore, and you think that's love, then what does love mean to you, right? You really have to look at the meaning of what certain things mean to you, because I've worked with some women that were women in abusive relationships. They're like, well, my husband loved me. And I'm like, did he love you when he beat you too? And they would just stop and not know what to say. And I'm like, honey, that's not love. That's called anger. That is not love. So you really need to be true to yourself, what you will accept and what you will not accept. And love is not something that you're going to get beat up over. And I don't even know why I'm saying this. So whoever is listening to this is coming out of my mouth. I've never said that before. However, the thing is that you need to first love yourself to the massive capacity, because then you won't take other people's remnants of what love means to them. You will say, this is what I desire from you. And I say this even for friendships. Like, it's a give and take. A friendship's a give and take. A relationship's give and take. Even your work career is a give and take. And if you feel that you're overgiving, and when you go ask for a raise, they give you 50 cents. So where's your self-worth there? And how much love do you have for yourself to say, no, I'm worth more than that? So there's a lot to unload there. But when I give something to someone, regardless of what it is, I have no expectation in return, because I know I'm giving from my heart. I'm not giving to be like, I wonder what they'll give me in return.
Yeah.
Because that's not really how this whole thing works. When you put whatever you're going to put out there, God, universe, grace is going to give you way more than what you've even put out there. So have no expectations. That's the word I wanted to use. Have no expectations to what you want to create for yourself. Because at the end of the day, no one could serve you as well you could serve yourself, and no one knows what you need or what you want unless you communicate it. So that softness, power, standing up for yourself all really comes in like a domino effect.
Wow, yeah. Thank you for that explanation there. And what's one moment in your life where you choose purpose over comfort?
Oh,
Like,
over comfort. There is no comfort in purpose. You could be put in so many different situations that when God gives you a purpose, you don't look for comfort, because God doesn't do things to comfort you. God does things to make you uncomfortable, to learn different things about yourself. And when you start learning different things about yourself and you start waving on that wave, like start riding that wave, you start becoming comfortable with yourself. So my purpose was always uncomfortable. I didn't even want to do half the stuff I wanted to do, but growth and discomfort come together. So when you're living on a purposeful plan, it's never an easy plan, because you'll get things thrown at you. You're like, well, I don't know how to take that. You're going to gasp for some air. You're going to question a lot of things, but you just have to go head on, focusing on what's next for you rather than sitting in a puddle of confusion. Because I would say what universe has for us, we could only see a small tidbit of it, because there's so much more in the background that universe is working behind the scenes. We can't see what God does for us. But what we need to do is just focus on the path that we're going on, focus on that goal that we want to get to, and have fun in the process of it. Once you're having fun in the process of it, everything starts to roll for you. Everything starts to manifest for you. Things will show up better for you than you've ever could imagine. And things like that have shown up for me all the time. Free trips, dinners, like all sorts of things have shown up for me. I'm like, well, I was just thinking about that. And you called and said that. Thanks, Lord. I'll take that. I'll take that. So it's just about being open, really, with yourself and understanding what you want more than anything.
Oh, I have two things to say about what you just said right now. One is, how do you recognize, because you say you've been thinking about something, right? And then you have a phone call or you have a conversation, something like that. How does someone like harness that and know when they're getting a divine message? Because that's also, I don't know if that's a skill that you get to develop, or it's a place of awareness that you get to where you understand, like, okay, this is not just a coincidence. This is not just an accident, right? It's a message being sent.
I love this question. It's different for everyone, and it depends where you are on your spiritual journey. So everyone that I work with, sometimes I'll get like a visceral feeling, but for me, it'll be the night before. It's like, it'll be like a question. For example, like, how would you like to go to Jamaica? And I'm like, well, what am I like that to just get rid? And I'll start talking to that energy. I'll be like, well, I would love that. Like, get out of the winter. Oh my God, pack my bags, get me out of here. So I would talk to that energy saying that to me, like, how about a trip to Jamaica? Or how would you like to go to that restaurant and try out that food? Oh my God, I'm dying to go there. Like, I wonder if I could get there. And I'm just talking to that energy. It's almost like I'm having a conversation with it. And then it becomes visceral in my body. And then the phone call happens. Or I'll notice like I'm starting to prepare for something. And I'm like, why am I even looking at luggages right now? Like, what's happening? So it's really about connecting the dots. Because one thing that I learned in this life about working with God, grace, universe, whatever you want to call it, was we're not given everything at one time. We're given bits and pieces. So that's why they say journal, write things down. When you wake up, write things down. When you have these dreams, write them down, because we're not getting everything all at one time. You're going to see there's a little hint over here. There's a little hint over there. You need to connect the dots. So I did get a trip to Jamaica, by the way. That's why I'm bringing that up. It was last February. I was like, Lord, I was so miserable. I'm like, I can't handle this cold, Lord. You know, Lord, we've had this conversation many times. And I'm literally having this conversation with the Lord. I'm like, Lord, and I'm having fun having this conversation. Like, imagine me on the beach in Jamaica, la, 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 la. And I'm going on. And then I have that energetic feeling like, oh, I feel like something's brewing inside of me. That's why I'm having this conversation. And then that's when the phone call came in the next day. And I was like, packing my bags, we're out. And I only had 3 days to pack my bags and I left.
Wow. Oh, okay. I feel like sometimes for myself, I feel like I would get a message, but then sometimes there'll be fear in the space where it kind of suppress that message. And then it gets to that place where I'm not questioning, like, was that what I'm supposed to, lean towards, or am I supposed to lean away from it? Right. So, yeah.
Can I answer that for you in a second there?
Please.
So when we get that intuitive feeling, fear will always show up because that intuitive feeling is bigger than what our body energetically could hold. So what's the first thing that will show up is fear or self-doubt. And what I've said to myself when I used to have that fear feeling would be like, oh, this is exciting. I can't wait to see what's going to show up. I can't wait for the next thing to happen. Because fear is there to hold you back in the old way. Remember, you can't serve two masters. You're either going to serve the spirit or you're going to serve the ego. Ego is part of the fear. So when you're having that feeling or that message come through, all you have to say is, I'm feeling this fear that's getting in my way, but my faith is stronger. So what you're doing is that you're suppressing the energy of the fear and allowing for your faith to rise. And then the self-doubt will probably show up. And then you have to talk to the self-doubt. It's almost like having the conversation with the energetic frequencies to get you out of the hole for you to expand your energetic frequency to start attracting more of these things into your life.
Yeah.
Because fear will always show up, and whatever spirit drops into your system, into your body, the magnitude of the energy is way bigger than what some people could hold in their body on a human level.
Yeah. Wow. Very powerful there. Thank you. And I hope somebody else that is listening to this conversation, that hit home for them as well. If a woman is doubting, right, her worth, as we talk about fear here, if a woman is doubting her worth, what's the one truth you can tell them in this moment to allow them to see themselves for who they are?
I use a lot of biblical stuff for myself. I use pure Bible stuff to get me out of a lot of holes. And it's not like I know the Bible like a theologian or a pastor. I really don't. I just know key phrases. And I said, Moses had a limp. And when he said to God, where do I need to go tell them that I spoke to you? Mm-hmm. He had to go speak to someone. And he had a lisp. So he was so doubtful and full of fear when he was told to go to the Israelites about the talking tree, right? So I always look at this. What am I doubting myself for? I still haven't harnessed into that power. So if I haven't harnessed into that part of me, I don't know that part of me. So that's why I'm doubting that part of me. But if I lean into that part of me, then I get to explore who she is and what she's all about. And that self-doubt will dissolve. So when that self-doubt dissolves, then what starts happening, I start to see myself in a different light. One thing that I want to tell all women right now is whoever you have on a pedestal above you, kick them off the pedestal and put yourself on there. That's the first thing when I start working with women, and they start talking about their friends and their husband and their kids. I'm like, I just threw them off the pedestal. You're on that pedestal. Now you are on top of the world in front of everyone. Stop putting other people on top of the world in front of you. I was that person that would put everyone on this pedestal. But I would do it because I wanted to empower women. But what I noticed is that I would put people on a pedestal and they would talk down to me. And I thought, honey, I put you up there. I could take you down real quick. So know your worth by understanding what's acceptable and what's not acceptable of how someone treats you. And when that self-doubt comes up, just know that you're stepping into a new arena of an energetic frequency that you still don't know in your humanness, but your spirit is very familiar with that. It's like almost like switching timelines. If you're switching into a new timeline, what's happening is that your energetic frequency is very familiar with that future timeline, putting that in quotations.
Yeah.
But your humanness doesn't know that timeline. So it's your humanness that you have to convince to say, oh, no, we're very familiar with that timeline. We just got to push towards that. Yeah. But you're going to have that self-doubt. You're going to have all these questions pulling you down. And that's why sometimes it's good to have someone that has those eyes for you that could see you and take you to that next level.
Absolutely. I 100% agree there. If every woman remember the innate power today, right? What would change in the world tomorrow?
Everything. The whole world will change if every woman understood how powerful she was. First and foremost, I guarantee she probably wouldn't be in a miserable marriage. Right? Second of all, she wouldn't be in a miserable job or in a mediocre job. Third of all, she wouldn't be allowing people to speak to her the way people speak to her. They're judging her, putting her down, or anything like that. When women recognize how powerful they are, they start to form bonds with other powerful women. They don't sit there and gossip about other people. They talk about business ideas, strategies. I love to talk about travel because that's what opens me up, right? So you work differently when you work with a bunch of women that are powerful compared to those that feel powerless. Yeah. Because why does a woman feel powerless? Because she's not focusing on herself. She's focusing on things around her that only she might be judging other people's life and situations. And I always say this, if you're judging someone, it's because they have something you want. And that's why you're judging them. So if you're sitting there judging your neighbor or your friend or your family or whoever it is, ask yourself the question, why am I judging that person? Guarantee you 99.9% of the time is because they have something that you want, or is because at the end of the day, you've been through that journey that they're going through. So you're not really judging them. It's almost like, oh my God, I remember that path. Yeah. Right? So you try to help them through that. But 99.9% is that when women judge another woman, it's because they have something they want.
Huh. And how do women cultivate less judgment, right? Less criticism of each other, and begin to form that unity, that bond, because it can get messy, especially when there's a sisterhood in play.
Yeah. Well, you form that by realizing that your judgments are based on what type of opinion, right? It's your ego speaking again. You can't serve two masters. So understanding that your judgment is really just the true version of who you are, it has nothing to do with the other person. So when someone says, oh, someone will tell me, say in a session, they're like judging someone. I'm like, okay, so how does that look at towards you? Put that mirror in front of you now. And now you've judged yourself, not that person. That person's bringing that part out of you. So if that person's bringing that part out of you, you're judging yourself, not them. And that's when they kind of go, oh yeah, that's true. So when you realize that as women, we could do more together, when we come together, like we're powerful, we're a team. The sisterhood is not about judgment. A sisterhood is not about throwing knives at each other. A sisterhood is about holding each other tight together. You know, having a shoulder to cry on, having someone to bitch and complain to. I don't really take too much of that stuff because at the end of the day, it's like, let's find solutions here. I'll give you 5 minutes to get that out of your system, but let's find a solution here, right? And then when you have that sisterhood, that bond, you have boundaries too. What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. I won't allow people to talk to me a certain way. Now I'll tell them that's not acceptable. You want to talk to me, come to me straight. And I have a lot of friends that go, Zach, like, you're just too like my friend yesterday, I was having a conversation. She goes, why are you getting mad? And I'm like, I'm not getting mad. I'm going to rip someone's head off if no one understands what I'm talking about. She goes, that's getting mad. And we were laughing about it. And I said to her, you know what it is? It's because I know what these women are made out of, but they can't see it. So their actions is driving me crazy. And I don't know how to dumb it down any more than I dumbed it down. And she goes, that's so true. She goes, we got to figure out how to do this. So I'm part of a women's group, and I love spotlighting women. I love putting a spotlight on a woman especially women that are shy and are afraid to speak about the things that they do. I love to spotlight you because I want to show your light to the world, because the world needs more light, especially the way we're living these days. Yeah. So everyone has a different gift inside of them. We could have the same gift, but I work differently than you, and I'm not meant for everyone. You're not meant for everyone. We all have that energy that's meant for certain people. So when we lift each other up and we shine a light on everyone, I always say, you know what? I'm not the person for you. Go check out Leah over there. She probably could help you better. I'm a little bit rough around the edges. I might cuss a few times. I know you can't handle that because you're dainty for me. I work with warriors. You're very in your feminine. You're very in the nurturing. You're very in that. I'm not that person for you. So I'm being totally honest with the individual, right? So when you're honest with someone, that changes the whole ball game as well.
Yeah. And how do you, because I sometimes get this comment as if like you're too harsh, because you just said it right now, and it reminded me of me when I say something and someone tells me like, you're not empathetic enough, but deep down in my core, right, it's coming from that place. It's coming from that place of love. Yeah. But it's like, you're not empathetic enough. You're not trying to understand this, but I'm just literally saying the truth, direct, because that's how I am somewhat, right? I just tell you exactly how I feel. I don't have to go dance around, right? So I just tell you, and I've got the feedback of like, you're not empathetic enough. How do you handle that, I guess?
I would say, is that my empathy, or is that you can't handle the truth?
Mm.
A lot of people can't just handle the truth, and they think you're rude, or you're too hard, or you're too this, or you're too that. But listen, your weakness needs a little kick in the butt, because that's what got you to where you are right now. I'm very empathetic. I could be very empathetic. However, it doesn't mean that I'm weak at the same time. It doesn't mean that I need to be rude. But you could say I'm harsh. Why? Because I'm telling you the truth. You can't handle the truth. And typically I get people that laugh at that and say, yeah, that kind of hurt. Well, that's because you have to wake up. If you're not triggered, you're not being pushed to be a better person or to see a better part of yourself. Triggering, when I would get triggered, I'd be like, okay, thanks for triggering me. People are like, are you serious? I'm like, damn right. They're like, what? I'm like, are you kidding me? You triggering me makes me know that I have something that's not fully healed inside of me. So I'm not going to turn around and be like, that was harsh. No, man, thank you for that. That's what I feel like this world that we live in, everyone's weak these days. They have no spine. Everyone follows the news. Everybody wants to be part of this whole organization of, oh, just love your neighbor. Yeah, love your neighbor. But hey, at the same time, let's use common sense. And I could go on about this because I was just at an event the other day and someone goes, they didn't put his pronouns on the birth certificate. And I took everything inside of me to say, there's two, him and her. That's all there is. Like, enough with this mind manipulation bullshit you're putting onto your child because you're lost and confused and you want to fit in. See, that's what the world's all about. They're trying to please everyone else out there, but making themselves look stupid at the same time. And I'm sorry if anyone's triggered by this. However, you need to keep on listening because this is something that maybe you need to hear at the end of the day. Stop falling for what the world is doing and start listening to what your spirit wants you to do.
Absolutely. We're going to dive into another part of the conversation here where we're going to talk about intuition, and intuition is the new intelligence, right? What's the difference between gut feeling and wishful thinking?
Well, wishful thinking is just something that you have off the cuff, but a gut feeling is something that you feel visceral within you, right? A wishful thing is like something I want to happen. A gut feeling is something that's going to happen. Two total different arenas.
Yeah. And because sometimes our mind could play tricks on us, right? We could think our wishful thinking is a gut feeling.
Yeah. So what I tell people is that when you're doing something like that, you have to have everything in alignment. Because sometimes we could feel that our gut's telling us something, but our heart's on the other side, and then there's our spirit, our mind's going this way. So you're just like zigzagging throughout the whole energetic frequency. But when you have this line going throughout your whole body, you could feel the chill behind your spine. You know you're on that right path. So can wishful thinking turn into a gut feeling? Absolutely. Because you're still thinking it, you're still speaking through it, you're still feeling it.
Yeah.
So when someone says, oh yeah, wishful thinking, well, maybe for you, but it's like putting my order into the universe. It's like going to the restaurant, asking the server for your burger, your fries, and what you want on your burger and what you don't want on your burger, right? That's exactly what so-called wishful thinking is. It's like, wishful thinking that I was sitting there going in January going, Lord, I'm cold, get me out of here. And someone goes, yeah, wishful thinking. Okay, great. Let me just continue wishing on this thought that I have going on because eventually it's going to show up. See what I'm saying? So wishful thinking is a thought that you're putting out there, where a gut feeling is the thought that's coming throughout your body. You're feeling it. Now you could act on it.
Yeah. How can a woman strengthen their own inner aura in a world that constantly tells them to doubt themselves?
Don't listen to the world. That's the number one thing. That's the whole problem why the world's suffering right now, because everyone's listening to the wrong people. Right? So stop listening to the world and start listening to yourself. Stop listening to everyone out there that sounds like a robot. Stop listening to the media, especially if you put a channel from Canada to US to Europe, they all sound like parrots. Stop listening to the parrots, right? I get very biblical with things because that's what I've fallen back on.
Yeah.
In different ways. And the thing is, like, go read the word, go read the truth, what's out there. Everything that's going on in the world has been written 2,000 years ago. What's the difference then and now? The difference is that we've been manipulated in so many ways to think that the Bible is farce, or it's this way, or it's that way, or Christians are like this, and la 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 la. Stop listening to that. Just know who you are. That's all that matters. Someone could say something to me and be like, where'd you get that from? Well, this is what I think about you. Well, you have no idea who I am. Know yourself so well that nothing bothers you. People could say all sorts of things to me. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I've had friends say to me, how do you not get bothered by that? Like, I want to punch that person in the face. I said, why are you wasting your time on lint? Lint is nothing. It's just stuff that you take out of your pocket and throw it away. That's what I look at when people give me their opinions, especially if it has nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. So choose what you want to hear, choose what you want to listen to, because hearing and listening are two different things. And then take whatever and make yours, but don't take everything. Because again, someone's judging you based on what they see from within you, what's inside of them. So I'm seeing inside of you, not what's inside you, but what's above you, because I could see way beyond the earth realm, right? So a lot of people can't see way beyond the earth realm. People are stuck in the earth realm.
Yeah, and how do we begin to break away from that space?
By meditating, by praying, by knowing who you are, by setting strict, like not strict boundaries, but setting boundaries and practicing your boundaries, by allowing people to fall off your waistline and not being bothered by it. There's just so much that happens. But then when you start stepping into your intuition and you start into your intuitive senses, into your spiritual being, you start losing people. People start calling you, oh, she just became weird. And she just started reading all these weird books. And now she meditates, or she does this. And it's just so weird. She's not the same person. Well, growth is not being the same person. It's stepping into a new vision of yourself, a new version of yourself every day. So you do that by just trusting the process and not listening to the chippering, the parrots of the outside world, but listening to the voice of the heart.
Sorry, I just had to with the parrot coming.
Yeah, the parrots, right? All these parrots, you have all these parrots that want to give you their opinion, but does it matter? No. What is right for you?
Yeah, man, thank you again so much for this conversation. It's been really enlightening and also empowering for me. Like I said, when I was reading up on you, and when I was creating this whole conversation, I knew it was going to be something that I'm going to need. I knew it was going to empower me. So I'm extremely grateful for this moment right now. I love it. My heart is kind of smiling, just coming through my face. But thank you so much again for creating the time to be here on Self-Reflection Podcast. Before we continue on our conversation, I want to ask you, if you have yet to subscribe to Self-Reflection Podcast, please go ahead and hit that subscription button as we seek to continue to grow this community on here. It will mean so much to me. Also, follow us on our social media at Lira, LIRA_NDIFON. Thank you guys again so much for joining us on Self-Reflection Podcast. Today we are talking to Zak. Zak, thank you so much again for being here. I'm excited to continue this conversation. We're going to move gear a little bit, and we're going to talk about alchemy of the soul. And you seem excited about this one.
Yeah.
How so?
Because I don't think people know who they are. That's the whole thing. We've been programmed to believe that we're someone totally different than the truth of who we are. And I say this because that's the way I was raised. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't talk to people about that. People are going to think you're crazy. So we're putting all our parents' fears or self-doubts on us and not really allowing us to shine our own light, because maybe our parents can't even handle what God put inside of their bodies to, pull us out into this world. So alchemy is a beautiful thing, but alchemy begins within first and foremost, because you got to clean through that rubbish. And that's my favorite part, taking you through that dark hole and just saying, is this you? Well, yeah. Well, no, it's not you. You just adapted that. So I've worked with so many women. I'm like, this is what I see. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, but you know what? 99.9% of this stuff is not even yours. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you've taken it and made it yours. What your mama told you, what the teacher told you, what your friends told you, you made all that rubbish yours. And then they sit there and go, that is so true. And so now we got to release all that so that you can step in full alignment with your truth and who you are. And that's truly alchemizing the truth of who you are and really stepping into that spiritual knowingness, because we are spiritual beings having this human experience. We're not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings. It's the total other way around. But when we harness that spiritual self and we recognize that spiritual self and love on that individual that comes out, everything changes in our life. And there's no good or bad. It's all same. Because in the bad, you find the good, and in the good, you get better at becoming who you are. But the most important thing in alchemizing life is to find your happiness. And a lot of women don't even know what makes them happy anymore. And that's why I find joy in saying, go do some belly dancing, go do a strip class, or go do a pole dancing class. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, move your hips, because as females, we hold so much feminine energy in our hips. And if we don't move our hips, then we're holding all that power in our hips. So I usually get women to do all sorts of fun things. And they're just like, that was so much fun. And I'm like, yes, because that's who you are.
Yeah.
So that's why I love this subject.
Oh, thank you. Can you share a time when you turn your deepest pain into a most powerful purpose?
I was in depression for the longest time. I knew how to get out of depression, but I decided to stay in depression because it was easier to stay in depression than to face the stuff that I've gone through. And that's what I say about a lot of people. They're stuck. It's not like they're stuck in unhappiness. They choose to stay in unhappiness because coming out of unhappiness, they don't know what they're going to face. So I've worked with a lot of women going through divorce. And I say, you're staying in your marriage because you're afraid of leaving your marriage and being single, but you rather sit in that place. So I went through depression a lot it's been a while since I went through depression, but I stayed in it for a long time. And I lauded myself in that spot. And I remember praying in bed and crying, and God saying to me, go and forgive people. I'm like, forgive people? Like, are you kidding me? And it was like, yes, you need to forgive people. And I'm like, do I get like a 24 caliber with that? Like, are you kidding me? And I was working through my whole anger. So never mind was I depressed. I was going through anger, and I was going through suicidal thoughts. And I turned that one day by turning on the Facebook Live when it first came out. I pulled out a deck of cards and I said, let's just do this. And I was just doing it for myself, but I heard my intuition say, just put it on social media. And I turned the camera on and I just started talking. I started talking about the struggle. I started talking about the hard times. I started doing cards, and I started being like, these messages are really for me, but whoever resonates with them, they're for you too. And one thing led to another. And I had people messaging me saying, I just really needed to hear that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, really? They're like, yeah, Zach, like, I don't think you understand what I was going through. And I'm like, no, man, like, I've probably been going through the same thing you're going through, but I just felt called to kind of share that depression isn't a hard thing. Well, it is a hard thing, but we make it harder than it is, right? But when we realize that we're not the only ones going through depression, a lot, like, I haven't looked at stats in a long time, but I used to look at a lot of depression stats. And when I look at those stats, the stats were only going up. So I said, you know what, if I'm going through this, someone else is going through this. And I can't be embarrassed by saying I went through depression or I'm going through depression, because that's the stigma around depression. Mm-hmm. So I just tell people, let's make depression normal, because the whole world's depressed these days. And I talked to someone and they said, I'm not depressed. I said, but you had suicidal thoughts. They said, yeah, I did. I said, so what are you afraid about depression? You had suicidal thoughts thinking that you weren't depressed. Do you think if you were happy, you want to kill yourself?
Yeah.
Right? So really be honest with yourself, because that's one thing. Everyone likes to wear the veils of happiness. Screw the veil. Just come out and just say, I'm having a hard time. It's okay. Mm-hmm. And I know people feel like they're like, yeah, Zach, that's easier said than done. I've been there. I did it. And the thing is about being truly honest with yourself and having these tough conversations with certain people. You can't have it with your friends or your family, I could tell you, because you'll be judged. You'll be, next thing you know, you're having broken telephone. Did you hear Cassandra's going through this? And oh my God, I didn't know. And blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to be the next sermon at church because of all this stuff. So really, really reach out to someone that could help you, that's not going to judge you through the process. Mm-hmm. But your so-called weakness, depression was my weakness. It became my power. It became my strength, because a lot of women going through depression were calling me, hey, I'm going through this. Yeah, don't worry about it. It'll pass. Just focus on this, this, and this. And they would call me like 3 months later. Oh, I feel so much better after you told me what to do. Great. You know?
Yeah.
So there's a solution to everything. It's just a matter of, you want to be true to yourself, or do you want to continue living a lie? Remember, you're serving two masters, the truth and the lie, ego and the spirit. You choose. That's where you have free will.
Yeah. You know, talking about this, I see a lot of women, young women in today's society, right? Doing plastic surgery, right? Altering the body. And, you know, the conversation that is being had is, it's my choice, it's my body, right? You know, I love myself still, but I'm choosing to do all of this alteration of my body. You know, what do you, because this is something that I've gone back and forth with myself of like actually starting to speak about it. Because first of all, I think it's generational trauma that we're causing on ourselves, on our children to come, right? And the future generation to come when they come here and see all of this. You know, so what is your thought about this society saying that, you know, it's enhancement. You're just changing, you know, you're just enhancing something that you don't like, right? For the young women that are out there.
This is a tough one because I have family members that do that. However, I always say this, is that if you love yourself so much, why do you need to enhance anything? Why do you need new cheeks, new lips, new eyes, a new ass, and a new everything? Like, if you love yourself and really understand yourself, you're not going to go through that. You're not going to look at your flaws and think, I got to get that fixed. I got to get that fixed. You might go and say, I got to go work out, or maybe I got to use different skincare. But I look at people and everyone looks like a bike seat these days. They got these big cheeks and they got these big lips and they got this forehead. And so someone put a comparison to a bike seat next to someone that was going through all that needle injection. And I couldn't stop laughing. I said, that's what the whole world looks like these days, like a total bike seat. You know, you got the cheeks and then you got this thing going on. Yeah. But I could guarantee you, if you loved yourself so much, you wouldn't be putting half of that garbage inside of your body. Or the best line I heard is, I'm preserving myself. Well, really, how are you preserving yourself? I remember saying, I can't remember, it was last week or the week before, I said to someone, I said, you know, I like to see what's going to happen in 20 years with all this plastic surgery and this Botox and stuff. I said, people's lips are going to be hitting the ground as they're walking, because that stuff is a lifelong thing, you know? And at the end of the day, you're not going to do that when you're 90. Can't see you doing that if you're in a senior's home, unless the esthetician comes and starts injecting you in the senior's home, right? So find grace in yourself. I just think, you know what? Yeah, to each their own. If you want to do it, do it. But at the end of the day, what I would say is step into your truth first and foremost and see yourself in a new light. And I could guarantee that's not only generational trauma, but that's also trauma based on relationships or how people spoke to you. If someone said in your young days, like, you're ugly this, blah, 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 it all really affects us. And I say that because, you know, my grade 1 teacher affected me, and I had a business coach. I remember my grade 1 teacher told me I won't amount to be anything. And I had a business coach, and he goes, what's holding you back? And I said, you know, I think all I hear is my grade 1 teacher speaking to me. And I'm 45 years old, and I could hear my grade 1 teacher speaking to me. So every injection is someone's voice in your head, basically. So that's what I say. It has nothing to do with you. You just have to clear whatever is going on inside of you, because beauty at the end of the day comes in so many different forms.
Yeah.
And you could make the choice if you want to do it or not. But you think I like sometimes my double chin? No, but I just do chin exercises, you know, and it helps, for crying out loud. But
yeah,
if you want to look like the rest of the world, go knock yourself out. I'm sure we got rid of some people after I called them a bike seat.
No, but I definitely, you know, thank you, because I think today in our society, a lot of women, I think we're lost, and it's sad that women are lost in the way that they are today, because in my opinion, I think if we want to change society, women have to do, like, women have so much power to be able to change this world. You know, I know we always think that men are the ones that are having the, you know, say, or the ones that can do it. But honestly, I think the feminine energy is something that cannot be matched, not to dismiss the masculine energy, because that plays a key role in our society. But I think if if women in society today get to understand the power that they possess within them, you know, our lives, like this world is going to be a different place, right? We're going to see the world from a different lens. So
well, let me say this to you. Women are so strong and powerful that men want to become women and play women's sports. Now, if that doesn't go to tell you something about women, you really need to change your whole view, to the point that if women were weak, do you think men would want to be women? Think about that for a second. Do you think we'd have to put up this whole fight about getting men out of women's sports if women weren't who we are? And that's the thing. We can't fight as women. We have to come together in unison with one another, because they're trying to separate us. Skin, religion, finances, everything. Whatever it is, I'm getting goosebumps saying this, whatever it is, they will try to diminish the woman. And that's one thing. If women were smart to realize what they're trying to do out there in the world, and you step into your truth, you start to realize that this is all happening so that women realize how powerful we are. So
yeah, I agree. And that's why they will do anything to make us feel less than what we are.
Exactly.
You know, do you believe everyone that has a hidden, you believe that everyone that we have in our body has a hidden gift? I think you kind of hint on this a little bit when you talked about depression.
Every wound has a hidden gift. Yes. Our pain is our story, is our passion. Absolutely. I think what it is that the more that we hold on to suffering. See, remember I said I was in depression. I knew how to get out because it wasn't my first bout of depression. It wasn't my first rodeo. Mm-hmm. However, I stayed in it because I was learning deeper about myself. And so I always say this, that if you're staying in a situation, if you're staying in a miserable marriage or a miserable job, it's that you're learning more about yourself. Because I've had women that I've worked with going through divorce, or like I'm going to go through a separation. I'm like, how long has this been happening for? And I could feel the energy saying to me, it's been about 10 to 12 to 15 years. It just depends on the individual. And they said, well, you know, I really fell out of love with him 7 years now. And I said, well, how long have you guys been together after that? Well, another 8 years. Okay, so what'd you learn about yourself? They learn what they want and what they don't want is the first thing they learn. And when I realized that, and then we kind of work together, then they take what they've learned about themselves and they turn that into a passion project, or they turn it into their career. I've had women actually leave corporate to start their own businesses because they're like, you know what, I think I'm more of a businesswoman. And they've gone from corporate to running their own businesses and making 6 figures. And that's what it is, really about harnessing you and your pain and your struggle become your story, become your superpower. And that's what it is. When I see women right away, they wear this veil and I'm like, I could look at them and say, stop playing with yourself. I could see right through you. I could see your pain. I could see your hurt. Oh, I didn't think anyone could see that. Well, not everyone can. Yeah. However, the key few are watching it and can see right through it, because not everyone's meant to see your pain. That's what my purpose is to see people's pain and to guide them through the pain and to turn their pain into a passion or into a journey that they're going to write a book. I start working with a lady, and I remember the 3rd week I worked, she goes, I don't even know why I'm paying you. And I said, oh, don't worry, you'll figure it out. And I just keep on going. I said, you're in the anger phase right now. You're fine. Just keep on going. And by like week 5, she's like, Zach, I just want to say thank you so much. Like, you've done so much for me. I'm like, oh yeah, now you know why you're paying me. And she's like, I can't believe I said that to you. I said, I've heard so many things. And she wrote 2 books working with me within 3 months. She wrote 2 books because that's how much she's cleared out of her system. And she was ready. You have to be ready for change. You have to be ready for spiritual and personal growth. If you're not ready, you're just wasting your time, because being ready when it comes to this spiritual growth, you're going to go through a lot of things and wonder, why are things shifting so fast for me? I could tell you stories upon stories when women decided to take that spiritual route and the things that happened to them, because there's times in the spiritual growth that you will feel lonely. And that's a good place to be, because that's turning your blank canvas and now you're painting a new picture for yourself. So that's why I find that it's best to always work with someone when you're going through a situation like that, because you're borrowing their eyes and a shoulder to cry on at the end of the day. I've had people call me and crying. I'm like, let's talk about this. So your wounds, your pain, your struggle, your suffering is basically someone else's assistance.
Mm. Yeah, because like I said, I was in a space where I haven't worked in like 8 months or so, have a full-time job, right? And I got to realize, I was telling a friend of mine that I got to realize that in that space, I saw myself where I realized that the old me, right? The old me in that space couldn't handle the change that was coming in my life. And that's taking on more responsibility with the things that are happening to me, right? Because I was telling them, like, I feel like I've always looked for people to kind of support me, right? I've always looked for someone else to like lynch on, to like, hey, okay, help me get to this space, right? But what I got to realize, as you keep speaking, I'm like, what I got to realize in that space is like, I was finding myself where I don't feel like I need somebody else to push me to, not to say that I don't need that extra support, because we all do to a certain degree, right? But I got to realize, like, I don't have to hold on to someone to drag me forward, right? Because me dragging myself forward means that I need to take more responsibility for the things that are happening in my life. I need to be accountable for the things that are happening in my life. And that's what I got to learn, the past couple months are, I've been in this hole, I would even say, right? And like you said, I choose not to stay in that hole, because it could get really dark, and that's what I got to realize. Like, when you get into that space where you're alone, you feel like there's no one could understand you. It gets really dark to a point where I felt like I was suppressed. Like, it like I was in a bottle or container, and just like, and I was telling my friend, like, I was just existing, I wasn't living, right? And that's the conversation we had in that space. So beautiful said. You want to add more, please do.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? When that's your first realization, that when you will feel compressed. You feel like you have nothing else inside of you. But that's when the bounce happens. That's when it's like, okay, now I'm ready to jump up.
Yeah.
And people say, hey, Zach, how'd you get out of depression? And you know what I said? The crystals were hurting me. Because that's how rock bottom I was. I saw the crystals. I was hitting off the points of everything. And I was done with being there. And I was compressed. But when you realize that there's more to us, this is something that people don't realize, because again, these are childhood imprints that we've been holding on to in our adult life, especially if you're going back to marriage. I don't know why I keep on going back to marriage, but some people have gotten married just to leave the family home. And then next thing you know, they're finding a spouse that's just like their parents. And then they stay with this person, and after like 10, 15 years, they're like, I just married my father that I couldn't stand. Yeah, because you left the house with your pain and suffering, and in result, you found exactly what gave you that pain and suffering. So it just comes into full circle, and it comes into full circle for self-realization. So you went through a self-realization moment there, which is a beautiful moment.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm also having a workshop on healing your inner child, because journey also took place within this 8 months. It was like me just learning myself, right? I got to realize some of the things that my inner child was facing, right? And it's beautiful, and yeah, I know that this conversation is going to come after our inner child workshop, but hopefully we're going to have a recording and you guys can get to listen to it as well. But thank you so much again for joining me on Self-Reflection Podcast. If somebody is going through that dark moment with themselves right now, what are some tools that you can give them in this moment for them to pull themselves out of it and see the light at the end of the tunnel? Because it's always light, right? As long as we wake up.
Always. First and foremost, what I say is bring awareness to your breath. Breath is life. If you come out of your mom's womb and you're not breathing, you're stillborn, right? So first and foremost, focus on your breath and recognize where you're breathing. Typically, if we're going through stress, anxiety, depression, panic, self-doubt, fear, all that stuff, we're breathing into our heart, into our solar plexus, into our throat. That's not going all the way down to your root chakra, so it's not going down to the foundation of self. So that's the first thing, is breath. Second is don't pay too much attention to the voice in your head, because that voice, when you start breathing all the way to your root, It could say that you're not worthy, or what makes you think that you could do that. It starts talking down to you, because that's all the energy that's coming up for you. But what I would say is write it all out and burn it. That's no longer you. And then create the new you, create your new character, your new personality. We could always create a new identity. It's just about stepping into that identity, stepping into that knowingness of who we are. And those are the three things that I would start off right away: is awareness, breathing, and writing down the thoughts, and then burning it. 4 things. And burn it on the full moon, and then look at yourself in a new moon. When you look at yourself in a new moon, you're looking at yourself in a new light. So who am I? And that's something I work with my clients a lot, the who am I, because a lot of people don't even know who they are.
Yeah, identity is a big one in our society today.
Yeah.
No?
The whole world lives on false identity because they're trying to make everyone like them. Well, I don't want people not to like me because So I'm just going to follow the masses. I was just going to say like a bunch of cockroaches, but follow the masses, right? Because that's what I'm trained and programmed to do. But how about I take you out of the masses and I teach you to start your own path, to step into your own path, because every woman's a leader out there if she really wants to be. She's leader of the house, leader of the companies. There's so many leaders that we are. However, we were never taught that we were leaders. And that's something that I love working with. I love working with the underdog, pulling out the warrior, pulling out the leader, and then she becomes fierce in so many different ways.
Yeah. And if we want to connect with you on social media or on your website, where can we find you?
My website's called BFU Club. That's Bold, Fierce, Unstoppable Club. It's a sisterhood community where we get together. And you could find me on social media on Instagram at Spiritual Hustler. That's HSTLR. Again, Spiritual HSTLR. I'm taking a social media break right now, but I'm sure by the time this is out there, I'll be back on social media.
Thank you so much again, Zak, for joining us on Self-Reflection Podcast. This has been a beautiful conversation. I have learned a lot from this conversation. Also, it has touched my heart, I guess, and enlightened parts of me that needed to get a little bit of kick in the butt, I guess you could say. So thank you so much again for joining us on Self-Reflection Podcast. Guys, I also want to ask you again, if you haven't subscribed to Self-Reflection Podcast, please go ahead and hit that subscription button so that you don't miss any other conversations like this one today. You know, in my opinion, I think the more that we continue to heal as a collective, the more that we continue to find ourselves, find the identity that we were talking about, and honing into our power as individual, I think that the better our society is going to become. Because if we individually can walk into our own light, can walk into our own power, that's the light that we share out into the world. So, go ahead and share this conversation with one other woman, right? Especially if you're a woman, or if you're a man listening to this conversation and you know some women in your life, go ahead and share this conversation with them, empower them today, empower them with something beautiful, and let them know that you see them, you love them, you respect them, and remind them of the power that they hold within themselves. Before we head out, do you have any final words for our family here?
Go out and have fun, because when you have fun, everything else follows.
Love that. Thank you. Take care of yourself, love yourself, be kind, and be gentle with yourself. Until next time, you're listening to Self-Reflection Podcast, and this is your girl, Lira. Ta-da!